YouTube. I am finally putting a video out about my E46 M3. For those of you that have watched my other videos, my channel has largely been focused on this, which is a 2011 Chevy Colorado that I put a 6-liter LS in it. If anyone is interested, feel free to check out those videos. I go through step by step on how I did that swap. This video is both an intro and an outro to my E46 M3. It's very sad. I've owned this car for about 10 years, but I've gotten to the point now where I haven't been driving it as much, and I'm just kind of ready for something new. I honestly thought I would hold on to this car forever, and you know, I've kind of come to the realization that when you have a 2-car garage and limited spots in the driveway, you sort of have to pick and choose. Eventually I would love to have a much bigger garage and storage and whatever else, but I'm not at that point now, so I'm deciding to park something else in its parking spot. Let me walk through the car just to kind of showcase it, and then I'll go through a bit of a montage on the car and whatever else if anyone's curious. But it is already sold. I thought about putting a video out on YouTube to see if anyone would be interested in it, but I listed it on Facebook Marketplace. Ended up actually getting contacted by Spencer Burke. If anyone watching knows that name, he's a YouTuber and kind of an automotive influencer who's also got a website or an Instagram page, I guess it is, that is dedicated to the sale of M3s. It's called the M3 list. So anyway, he reached out to me, he liked my car, and he also put it on the M3 list, which was pretty cool. So I basically got a free listing from Spencer Burke, so shout out to him. Thank you, Spencer. It's sold. It's getting shipped down to Atlanta next week. I already took a deposit on it, so it is out of here, and I will be replacing it with something fun, which I fully intend to feature on this this channel in terms of modifying it, driving it, all that good stuff. Let me walk through the car. So 2003 M3, original color is steel gray. I have wrapped it a Grigio Telesto gray, which is a Lamborghini, and a Audi color, kind of like a matte gray. I actually did wrap it myself, which was a huge pain in the ass. Did a decent job, but definitely not professional by any means. Not going to show the engine bay. It basically looks like a stock S54. It's got a few intake mods. It's got Mach Schnell intake elbow, AFE filter. It's got Turner underdrive pulleys and an active auto work tune. Outside of that, power-wise, the only other modification that it's got to increase horsepower is this, which is one of my favorite parts of the car. It's a Bimmer World race exhaust. There you can see a good view of it. So single exit exhaust, some people hate it. It's by far the lightest system for these cars, and it also sounds ridiculous. Probably one of my favorite parts of the car is that exhaust. It's an awesome system. I was able to pick one up a few years ago and throw it on here. I've been super happy with it. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but it's actually a full single exhaust all the way back. So it goes from 2 at the header to 1, and then it's 3.5 inches full through all the way back. Suspension wise, it's got HKS Hypermax coilovers. Really weird JDM parts on a non-JDM car, but they work actually pretty well. Ride is decent, they handle well. It's got almost all urethane bushings in terms of the front control arm bushings, rear trailing arm bushings. Upgraded white line sway bar, polyurethane bushings on that as well. It's got urethane bushings with a factory sway bar on the back. In terms of wheels, I have 2 different sets of wheels, both Apex, of course, because it's a BMW. So these are Apex FL5 wheels. These are 18x9s running a 265, so 18x9 squared setup all the way back. These are Hankook Ventus tires. I honestly kind of threw some cheap tires on it for the time being. So tires aren't great, but it allowed me to get these wheels on the car. You can see in here, it's got extended wheel studs. I think those are 78mm wheel studs. Brakes, one of probably the coolest parts of this car. So rotors, it's just got stop text in the front, Zimmerman OEMs in the rear. But I actually did a full Porsche 911 big brake kit on this, which you can see through the wheels. So that is a Porsche 996 caliper. that I painted. It's got some pretty aggressive pads in it, and basically it's an adapter bracket that adapts it onto the E46 M3. And then you also have to buy stainless lines to adapt the lines as well. So it's got a full kit, front and rear. That's obviously the front. Here's the rear, so you can see the rear 911 caliper. Definitely helped with stopping power and just brake feel in general. And it's just unique. I feel like you don't see a lot of white calipers, so the color combo with the gray and the black wheels and the white kind of pops. So that's almost all of the suspension. I'll show a few more things that are a bit unique to this car. Exterior wise, I talked about the wrap. It's also got some carbon mirror covers. I also did a carbon sunroof delete panel, especially for a car that was primarily going to be a track car. Getting that weight out of the top of the car was crucial. So it's got a CSL trunk, not an original one. This is a replica. What else here? So it's got a carbon diffuser. Again, left some exposed carbon there. It's got the facelift LED taillights. Those are depot lights, I believe. What else? That's pretty much it exterior wise. I also did just different vents in the front, like CSL air duct vents, and then obviously black kidneys, smoke corners, kind of all the normal stuff that you do to these cars to make them look better. All right, interior wise on this thing, it's basically back to stock. I did have a Corbeau racing seat in here. Took it out. I'm holding on to that. So the buyer wanted the interior back in it. So I put everything back together. It's in pretty good shape overall. It's got a UUC short shifter with an MKH Motorsports shift knob, which puts the shift knob really close to the steering wheel, which is pretty nice. Drivetrain wise, I don't know if I talked about it. Clutch is stock. Does have a UUC clutch line and delay valve delete. Also has Bimmer World solid rubber motor mounts and Turner trans mounts. So it really helps this thing kind of shift crisply and just all around drive really nice. But yeah, that's it for the interior. All right, looking in the trunk here, this is another mod that's somewhat unique for this car. For anyone that doesn't know much about these cars, they have weak rear subframes from the factory. The sheet metal actually kind of rips out if you drive the car too hard, and you know, there's a lot of different factors. Certain build dates, the earlier build dates, are also a little bit more weak. So people do various things to reinforce the subframe. This car, I did it's called a Mason Engineering. It's a really small company. I think it may just be one dude, but Mason Engineering brace. So you basically have to drill through the floor, and then there's a bar that goes from this side to the other, which kind of helps brace the subframe, again, up through the body. And then that connects up to this rear strut bar. The strut bar itself actually bolts into the strut towers. So super robust setup in the rear end. It all kind of ties together. They aren't cheap, but definitely worthwhile if you're going to be tracking your M3 to put one of these in. Just added kind of reassurance that your subframe isn't going to rip out. So that is an overview on the car. There's definitely more stuff that I'm forgetting about. I've done a ton of work on this car, even just maintenance over the past 10 years. If anyone knows BMW's preventative maintenance, that's always the term that you hear about BMWs, is you got to do preventative maintenance, and you really have to. Like, they're not the cheapest cars to own. They're not finicky, but they do drive amazing, you know, as long as you keep up with them. Why am I getting rid of this? It's a long story, but the best way to put it is, you know, I don't drive it as much. I've basically made it into a track car, but unfortunately I have not made enough time to get it out to the track, which means as a street car, it's not as usable as it used to be. So I don't want to drive it on the street because it's not as enjoyable as it once was. It's stiff. The roads around here aren't great. It's loud. It's just not, you know, the most enjoyable street car. One thing I didn't mention too is I'm also, you know, as I'm learning to be a better driver, learning on a fairly nice E46 M3 is not the best idea. So ideally, I'm going to build a full cheap track car. Don't know what yet, but something that I wouldn't mind putting into a wall versus this. In the short term, I'm going to replace this with a fun street car, something a little more comfortable to take out on the weekends. And then I'll be building a full track car and definitely will feature both of those on the channel. I think to a point, I'm putting this video out for me more than other people. I'm 100% going to miss this car. It's been great to me. Like I said, I've owned it longer than any other car by a very large margin, but just time for something new. So goodbye to the E46 M3. I will sincerely miss this car.